We're reacting to this trailer, The Secrets of Hillsong, and we're going to see what Carl Lentz has to say about exactly what's been going on in the Hillsong debacle.
The truth doesn't go anywhere just
Blessings
because you
to you
cover
too,
it up.
bro.
I don't like you, but I love you.
Hillsong is a megachurch, and Carl Lentz is the celebrity pastor.
Carl is so charming.
People idolized him.
There is a sense that
I'm gonna
can
go
be...
past. I'm gonna go past that. I have to say, the trailer so far, the trailer seems pretty legit. Like, this seems like it's gonna be a really good documentary as far as the product. As far as the product, I don't know about the content yet, but as far as the product, it seems like it's really well put together. Let's continue. Why does it do that every time I press that button?
Hot. He was so special.
It was cool.
It was cool. It was cool. Okay, so what does that mean? It was cool. And like, stick to that, because we're going to have something to say about that at the end of this. So stick with me. Remember that. It was cool.
Carl was this mega superstar, and then he just disappeared.
He didn't disappear. We know what happened to him.
You do not want to be in this chair. I cannot stress it enough.
Agreed.
I had some major lies.
He said, I have been unfaithful.
Carl was fired by Hillsong leader Brian Houston, but there was something larger happening at this church.
People were putting things together. Brian's unraveling was bound to happen.
They were protecting something. What are they protecting? Brian's pushing people to the limit.
Hillsong culture is loyalty to Hillsong.
Hillsong culture is loyalty to Hillsong. I gotta say, I actually have been a part of a church like that before. That the culture of the church is loyalty to the church, loyalty to the pastor. I've been part of a church like that before, and it wasn't Hillsong, like, I'll give you that, but it was definitely not a healthy setting to be at for a church. And it was like basically like the worship of the pastor. You know, like, everyone thought the pastor was this amazing person. Like, he's the most awesome guy ever. And he can't say anything wrong. He can't do anything wrong. And if you disagree with him, then you're like a black sheep. Like, you're like an outcast. And so the culture of the church that I was in, and I've been in a couple of them actually, was loyalty to the church. And if you're not loyal to the church, if you're not loyal to everything the pastor preaches, like, if you don't agree with everything, you're an outcast, you're a black sheep. Like, you better agree with everything, or basically you're a heretic, you know? And so let's continue this.
A series of violent criminal acts against children.
Did you cover up your father's abuse?
They had meetings about not telling anyone.
They had meetings. They had meetings about not telling anyone about the SA. So Brian Houston actually covered up his father's SA, like, he knew about it and did not say anything about it. And it said here, they had meetings about it. Man, that is just, like, that's depressing. As Christ followers, like, that's depressing. Very disappointing, I guess I'd say.
It's child abuse, labor abuse, assault.
SA again. Child.
We are fearful of what is ahead.
I've never seen anything like this.
This is a church we're talking about.
Yeah. Man. So, guys, that as a whole, I'll say as a whole, the trailer itself looks really good. I'm going to see it. I'm going to watch it with my wife. We're going to see exactly what it has to say. I've got some takeaways from it. And so, like I said, hold on to the it was cool. Like, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But takeaways, what I hope, like what I'm hoping from this, I hope it is not like Carl Lentz saying, everything happened to me because I was in this setting. You know, like all of this stuff happened because I was being manipulated, because I was being used, you know, and just like not like basically having like this escape of like responsibility, you know. And so I hope that that's not what it is. I hope that he understands like taking full responsibility for the actions he did. Because like they said, he just disappeared. He didn't just disappear. Like, bro didn't just disappear. We know what happened. He had an affair and was fired from the church, told his wife, told his wife that he was unfaithful. Like they said, he didn't just disappear. You know, they left and worked on their marriage, but he did not just disappear. Like, I want to make that clear. And I really hope that this is not a place of like, I'm not taking full responsibility for my actions anymore. Now I have a scapegoat. Like they used me as a scapegoat. Now I can use them as a scapegoat and say like, well, I was just in this place in my life and I was just used manipulatively, blah, 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 which I get. Like you can be manipulated. You can be manipulated. I understand. But there also has to be a responsibility for the actions we have. Like we reap what we sow. We don't reap what others sow into us, you know? So just to keep that in mind. Now, as far as it is cool, like that's kind of the point I want to hit home on here before I bring this whole thing in together is like, what is so cool? Like, why is being cool such an important thing? And that seems like right now in America that the cool factor, you know, the youth pastor has to wear skinny jeans and leather boots and super tight shirts and just like the Bass Pro Shops hats, you know, and the worship leader has to wear even skinnier jeans and the white t-shirt with a little rip in it and all these things. And like, why is the cool factor so important right now? Like, I feel like as a whole, like there's been this shifting in the church, and I don't know when it started. In my opinion, it started kind of with Hillsong really bringing in like this new fresh wave of music. You know, I remember I was in a Methodist church at the time when Hillsong very first started kind of getting bigger. And at least where I was in the time I was. And I remember that's when it was like, oh, we need a contemporary service now. Like we need a band with a contemporary service, you know, and now we've seen all of this stuff of like the worship band doesn't have to be Christian. They just have to be good at playing music, you know, and it's like, what in the world are we getting at? But yeah, like the worship leader doesn't have to be a good like Christ follower. He just has to be a really good singer, you know, has to have be good at playing the guitar, be a really good singer. And now it's like the pastors, you know, they're all wearing $1,000 sneakers and stuff like that, which I'm not going to go into my whole opinion on that right now, but it's just the cool factor seems to be so important to people now. And don't get me wrong, like I understand, I get the contextualization of the gospel. I understand that. I understand like not having to dress in a suit and a tie when you go to church. I don't believe that you have to do that, you know? But I think that there's a point where the contextualization of the gospel kind of gets put on the back burner, and it's not so much the contextualization of the gospel as it is the like, I want to be famous, I want to be popular, I want to be important to people. And so that is the issue that I'm seeing. And so like this whole thing with LENTZ and now the Hillsong as a whole, you know, it's such a factor of let's be cool, let's be influential, let's be like everything that we can be as far as almost compromising the gospel in a lot of ways, just so that way we can reach as many people. But you're not necessarily reaching people because you're not even reaching them with the true gospel, you know? And so Carl LENTZ, I would say, I hope that it's not him or like shirking his responsibilities. You know, I hope that that's not what's happening. I would imagine that it's not. But at the same time, like I would challenge you guys. Here's my challenge for you, because I don't know why he's even doing this documentary. He is on staff now at Transformation Church in Oklahoma City, where we did a message on their Easter service recently. But he has a job, like he's back in ministry, and you can go watch somebody else's channel as to whether or not that's okay. My challenge for you, here's my challenge for you, okay, is this, like, we should allow for the possibility of someone to be reconciled to God. We should allow that possibility. And so I wouldn't say, I would not say he is fully like restored, like you shouldn't question at all. Like you shouldn't like test anything. Like you should test everything. Like test every spirit, test what I say, test what your pastor says on Sundays. But with him being fresh back in, like, yeah, test it. Test the things that he says. Watch some of the stuff. Like watch some of his sermons if they have him preaching at all. I don't honestly don't know if they have him preaching at all. I think they just brought him in as like a way of helping them, like helping them with their services and things like that. But if he does preach, which I imagine at some point he will, because he has preached a lot, then listen, because there are sermons I've heard that are okay. There's a lot of things I've heard that are not okay, but I don't know where he's at. I don't know where he's at in his life. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to watch the documentary. Like, I want to give him charity, and I hope you do too. Like, we should allow for someone to be restored to God. Like, we should allow for the reconciliation of somebody back to the Lord. You know, without seeing something happen and just be like, oh yeah, he's a heretic. He preached a false gospel back then, so now he's a heretic forever, and I'm never going to believe anything he says. I'm never going to trust anything he says. I'm never going to listen to anything he says. Like, that's my challenge to you. Allow for someone to be restored. If you had a sin that you struggled with that was put in the open, and then the next thing you know, like everybody knows about it, and then you're kicked, like say you're like a youth pastor or a pastor, and you get kicked out, you're no longer a pastor of your church, would you hope that there's an opportunity and a possibility for reconciliation for you to possibly be able to be a person who can preach the word of God again at some point in time in your life? Or is it just, or do you have the thought process of, well, they screwed up, so now they're gone, they're done forever for good, you know? And so that's my challenge to you. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. I love you guys. Thanks for hopping on. Please, if you haven't, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for all notifications so you know every time we come with a new video upload. And lastly, we finally got a Patreon page account. The link is in the description. If you want to, you can get started for as little as $5 a month. The perks are sweet. The perks are awesome. And I can't wait to see you in Patreon. Let's go on to the next topic.
Only one thing is needed. One thing is needed. One thing is needed. One thing